The sun bled into the horizon like a dying ember when shy rancher Elias Crowley steered his mule cart along the dusty edge of Apache Ridge, thinking only of repairing the broken fences back at his ranch, when the ground trembled beneath him, slow at first, then stronger, like steady drumbeats of a far-off thunder. He froze, breath knotting in his throat, as a towering silhouette stepped from the canyon shadows. Ayanna, the giant Apache girl, taller than any warrior he had seen, her hair braided with feathers, her presence bending the very silence of the desert around her. Her amber eyes locked onto him with an intensity that made his pulse trip over itself. And though Elias tried to muster a steady greeting, his voice cracked like a boy's. She studied him, unblinking, before stating bluntly, "I've been watching you patch your fences all week. You work hard. For someone so small." Elias tried to smile, unsure if she meant teasing or compliment, and Ayanna crossed her massive arms with a frustrated grunt that echoed across the ridge. "I haven't had sex in months," she said, as casually as others might mention the weather. Elias nearly dropped the reins. His heart hammered, his face flushing deep enough to match the desert dusk. He was so shy he could barely talk to regular-sized women, let alone a towering warrior with a voice like rolling thunder. But Ayanna wasn't flirting. Her tone carried irritation, loneliness, and something heavy beneath it, something tired and deeply human. She turned away, kicking a boulder loose with one step, muttering about enemies encroaching on Apache land, her people struggling, her strength being both weapon and burden. Elias saw then behind the fierceness someone exhausted, isolated by her size, feared more than understood. Mustering the rare courage that surfaced only in desperate moments, he offered her water, his hand trembling as he held up the canteen to someone who could crush him with a flick of her wrist. Ayanna paused, the canyon wind settling around them like it was listening. And for the first time she smiled, a small, reluctant smile that made Elias forget every danger in the world. She said he was brave for staying, for not running like others did. He admitted he wanted to, but something about her told him he shouldn't. She laughed, a low rumble that vibrated through the stones. As the night came on and the stars sprawled across the sky like ancient stories, Ayanna walked with him back toward his ranch, slower than usual so his shorter legs could keep up, telling him fragments of her struggles. Rival tribes, greedy land barons, bounty hunters obsessed with her legend. Elias, timid though he was, listened with complete focus, offering gentle words and awkward kindness that made her laughter more frequent, her shoulders less tense. By the time they reached his ranch gate, the desert chill had arrived, and Ayanna looked down at him with an unreadable expression, half longing, half fear of her own feelings. Before he could ask if she wanted to stay for the night's safety, she touched the top of his hat lightly with one giant fingertip. "You're too kind for this world." "Little rancher," she murmured, then added softly, "and maybe too kind for me." She stepped back into the moonlit dark, vanishing between the mesquite trees, leaving Elias breathless, confused, and thinking about her far more than he wanted to. He didn't know it yet, but this night was only the first crack in the quiet life he'd built, because Ayanna wasn't the only giant stepping out of the shadows of the west, and danger was already riding hard toward both of them. If you want more epic stories like this, partner, dawn rolled over the plains in a pale gold wash as Elias awoke to the uneasy sense of being watched. Reaching for his rifle, he stepped onto the porch, but instead of bandits, wolves, or rival ranchers, he found Ayanna sitting beside his barn like a mountain that had grown legs and walked there. Her expression storm-dark and restless. She rose slowly, towering more than ever in the early light, and said in a voice low as midnight, "I shouldn't have left you alone last night." Confused and slightly flustered, Elias stammered that he'd been fine, but Ayanna shook her head hard enough that her braids whipped like black thunderbolts. "They're hunting me," she said, "and those who stand near me get hurt." Before Elias could ask who they were, the distant thumping of hooves broke the morning quiet. Fast, chaotic pursuing. Ayanna grabbed Elias instinctively, shielding him behind her leg like he was fragile glass. 3 riders crested the eastern ridge, rifles glinting, dust swirling behind them. Elias recognized the emblem on their coats. The Baron Hartwell mercenaries, notorious for capturing rare people and creatures to parade before rich crowds. And Ayanna, Largest and strongest of her clan, was the ultimate trophy. Without warning, gunfire cracked through the air, bullets ricocheting off rocks as Ayanna hurled herself sideways, pushing Elias into his barn. The force sent him sliding across the dirt floor, breath knocked out of him. When he stumbled upright, he saw her outside, massive, fierce, and terrifyingly graceful, using fallen logs and boulders as shields. Refusing to retreat even a step toward the mountains behind his ranch, Elias wanted to hide, to run, to pretend none of this was happening. But every time he looked at her, standing alone against a storm she hadn't created, something inside his timid heart snapped open. She had protected him. Now it was his turn. Gritting his teeth, Elias climbed into the barn loft and grabbed the old, long-barreled rifle his father once used during border skirmishes. Not fired in years, but still true. He aimed with shaking hands, whispering apologies to himself, and squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the valley like a lightning strike, grazing one mercenary's arm, sending him tumbling from his saddle. Ayanna glanced back, fire lighting her eyes. Not anger, but something like pride. With renewed force, she seized a wagon wheel larger than Elias himself and hurled it like a discus, knocking the second rider clean off his horse. The third, seeing the tide turn, galloped away, shouting promises of return. Dust settled. Silence returned. But the look Ayanna gave Elias was nothing like before. It was deeper, softer, almost painfully vulnerable. She approached him slowly, each step measured, as if afraid one wrong motion would crush the fragile moment forming between them. "You fought for me," she whispered. Towering above him but sounding small for the first time, Elias swallowed hard, cheeks burning as he answered, "You matter to me." She knelt then, bringing her colossal presence down to his level, not as a warrior but as a woman, carrying the weight of two worlds. Her enormous hand cupped around his waist gently, almost reverently, as if she feared her own strength. "All this time," she murmured, "I thought my size made me something to fear. But you look at me like I'm something worth saving." Elias's breath hitched when her forehead touched his, her warmth surrounding him like a living sunrise. "I haven't had closeness in months," she admitted in a trembling voice, echoing her confession from the night before. Not physical things. I mean someone caring whether I live or die." Elias, timid rancher no more, placed his palm against her cheek. "You're not alone. Anymore." Just as the moment deepened into something unspoken and powerful, a column of black smoke spiraled upward from the distant ridge, signals from Hartwell's outpost. Reinforcements were coming. Ayanna rose, fierce again. Elias stepped beside her, rifle in hand, and for the first time, they stood not as odd companions but as partners facing the vast, violent West. Their fight and their bond had only begun. For the next thrilling chapters of their journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss what happens next.